My name is Evelyn Carter, and for most of her life, she had learned how to exist quietly in rooms that were never built for her comfort. She lived in Brooklyn, New York, in a narrow apartment above a closed-down tailor shop. The kind of place where the floorboards creaked like they were remembering better days. Evelyn worked as a senior financial compliance analyst for a private investment firm, an invisible job by design. She was the woman who reviewed numbers before deals were approved, the last pair of eyes that could stop a disaster before it happened. No one ever applauded her work, no one ever invited her to celebrations because of it. But executives slept peacefully because people like her existed. Evelyn liked it that way. Silence had always been safer than attention. Growing up, she had learned early that love in her family came with conditions. Her younger sister, Vanessa, had been the sun around which everything revolved, loud, charming, effortlessly beautiful. Their mother adored Vanessa openly, proudly, as if Evelyn were a draft that never made it to the final page. Evelyn was not ugly, not unintelligent, not unsuccessful. She was simply overlooked, and after years of trying to earn affection that never arrived, she had stopped trying altogether. She paid her bills, sent birthday gifts on time, attended family events when required, and kept her personal life carefully sealed away like a locked drawer no one ever bothered to open. The baby shower invitation arrived 2 weeks earlier, printed on thick ivory cardstock, with gold lettering that felt unnecessarily expensive. It announced that Vanessa's baby shower would be held at Le Chateau Bleu, one of Manhattan's most exclusive luxury restaurants, floor-to-ceiling windows, imported marble, a waiting list longer than some careers. Evelyn stared at the invitation longer than she needed to. She already knew what the day would be like. Vanessa would glow. Their mother would hover proudly. Guests would laugh too, loudly. Evelyn would sit somewhere at the edge, smiling politely, making herself small. Still, she went, because not going would turn into another quiet accusation later. On the day of the event, Evelyn arrived 10 minutes early. Dressed simply but elegantly in a navy blue dress she had bought herself after a promotion she never told her family about. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her makeup minimal. She stood outside the restaurant for a moment, watching the reflection of traffic slide across the glass, steadying herself before going in. Inside, the place buzzed with soft music and high-status laughter. Crystal glasses clinked. The air smelled like money and perfume. Vanessa spotted her immediately and smiled, but it was the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "You made it," she said, glancing Evelyn up and down like she was checking an item off a list. Of course, Evelyn replied gently, "Congratulations." Their mother appeared seconds later, already flushed with excitement. "There you are," she said, kissing Vanessa's cheek before turning to Evelyn with a distracted nod. "Go on, find a seat." Evelyn looked around. Every chair at the long decorated table was filled. Name cards sat neatly in front of each place. She walked slowly along the table once, then twice, scanning for her name. It wasn't there. She stopped near Vanessa, lowering her voice. "I don't see a seat for me." Vanessa didn't look embarrassed. She looked annoyed. "Oh," she said lightly, "we didn't think you'd mind." Space was tight. Their mother chimed in without missing a beat. "Honestly, Evelyn, you're always so flexible." Evelyn waited. Surely someone would stand up. Surely this was a mistake. Instead, Vanessa tilted her head toward the window. "Why don't you try that dirty pub across the street? You'll probably feel more comfortable there." For a fraction of a second, the room went quiet in Evelyn's ears. The words settled like dust. She felt every eye nearby flick toward her, then away again, pretending not to hear. Their mother laughed softly. "It suits you perfectly," she added. Evelyn felt something tighten in her chest, but years of practice kicked in. She smiled, a calm, polite smile that fooled everyone but herself. "That sounds like a great idea," she said evenly. "I'll do that." No one stopped her as she picked up her purse. No one apologized. Vanessa was already talking to someone else by the time Evelyn turned away. She walked out of the restaurant slowly, her heels clicking against marble that suddenly felt hostile. The moment the door closed behind her, the noise cut off, replaced by the city's distant hum. Across the street stood the pub Vanessa had mocked, dimly lit. Old brick, A flickering neon sign that read the Black Alder. It wasn't dirty, it was just real. Evelyn crossed the street, each step lighter than the last. Inside, the pub smelled of wood, beer, and something warm she couldn't name. A bartender looked up and nodded. No judgment, no questions. She sat at the bar and ordered a whiskey she didn't usually drink. When it arrived, she didn't rush it. She took one slow sip, then another. And for the first time that day, her shoulders relaxed. She didn't notice the black SUV pulling up outside the restaurant. She didn't see the man step out, adjusting his cufflinks, scanning the windows of Le Chateau Bleu with quiet authority. She didn't hear the shift in tone inside the restaurant when a senior partner from one of the city's most powerful investment groups asked calmly, "I'm here to see Evelyn Carter." Vanessa froze mid-laugh. Their mother's smile faltered. "Which one?" someone asked. The man frowned slightly. The compliance director who just left. Silence spread across the table like spilled wine. Someone pointed, hesitantly, toward the window, toward the pub across the street. The man followed their gaze and his expression changed. Inside the Black Alder, Evelyn lifted her glass again, unaware that the people who had dismissed her minutes earlier were now standing, pale-faced, watching through the glass as power quietly rearranged itself around her. And for the first time in her life, Evelyn Carter was exactly where she belonged. Evelyn was halfway through her second sip when the atmosphere inside the pub changed in a way she had learned to recognize from years of boardrooms and silent negotiation. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was the subtle tightening of space. The way conversations dimmed just a notch, the way people unconsciously straightened their backs. She didn't turn around immediately. She didn't need to. Experience had taught her that when important people entered a room, they announced themselves without speaking. The bartender's eyes flicked past her shoulder, widened slightly, then returned to her face with new respect. "Looks like you've got company," he said quietly. Evelyn turned then, slowly, her whiskey glass still in her hand. Standing just inside the doorway was Richard Hale, tailored charcoal suit, silver hair, posture rigid with authority. He was one of the founding partners of Hale and Whitmore Capital, a firm that moved markets without ever appearing in headlines. To most people, he would have been just another well-dressed executive. To Evelyn, he was a man who never showed up unannounced unless something mattered. "Evelyn," Richard said, relief softening his sharp expression as he approached. "I was hoping I'd find you here." She blinked once, surprised but composed. "Richard, I didn't realize you were in the city." "I wasn't," he replied. "Not until an hour ago." The bartender instinctively stepped back as Richard took the stool beside Evelyn. A few nearby patrons pretended not to stare. Evelyn set her glass down carefully. "Is something wrong?" Richard exhaled. "Potentially catastrophic," he said. "And you're the only person I trust to tell me the truth." Across the street, inside Le Chateau Bleu, Vanessa's laughter had died completely. Guests whispered. Their mother clutched the edge of the table like it might drift away. They watched through the glass as the man, clearly important, clearly powerful, sat beside Evelyn like she belonged there, like she had always belonged there. Vanessa leaned toward the window, squinting. "Who is that?" Someone murmured a name. Someone else confirmed it. The color drained from Vanessa's face. Back in the pub, Richard slid a slim tablet across the bar. "We're about to finalize an acquisition tomorrow morning," he said. "A logistics company with international exposure. My team says everything checks out. My instincts say otherwise." Evelyn glanced at the screen but didn't touch it yet. "And you flew across the country because of a feeling?" "I flew because 3 years ago, you stopped me from making a mistake that would have cost us 9 figures, Richard replied. "And because you walked out of a board meeting when everyone else stayed silent." Evelyn's lips curved faintly. "I remember. You told me then that the most dangerous lies are the ones people want to believe," he continued. "I want to believe this deal is clean." She finally looked at the data. Her eyes moved fast, absorbing patterns, inconsistencies, details others missed because they didn't want to see them. The pub faded away around her. Numbers spoke to her the way people never had. Across the street, Vanessa stood abruptly. "I need some air," she said, already pushing past chairs. Their mother followed, panic creeping into her voice. "Vanessa, wait." They exited the restaurant just as Evelyn tapped the tablet and turned to Richard. "This subsidiary," she said calmly, "it's a shell, and it's hiding debt offshore. If you sign tomorrow, you inherit everything." Richard's jaw tightened. "How sure are you?" Evelyn met his eyes. "Enough to walk away from my own family to sit in a pub alone." That earned a short, humorless laugh. "That's sure then." The pub door opened again. This time Evelyn didn't need instinct. She felt it. Vanessa hesitated just inside, her confidence gone, replaced by uncertainty. Their mother hovered behind her, eyes darting between Evelyn and Richard like she was trying to solve a puzzle too late. "Evelyn?" Vanessa said, her voice suddenly softer. "We didn't realize you'd left so quickly." Evelyn turned on her stool, composed, unreadable. "I told you where I was going." Richard glanced between them but said nothing. He didn't need to. His presence spoke volumes. Their mother forced a smile. "Why didn't you tell us you were meeting someone important?" Evelyn considered that. Truly considered it. Then she answered honestly, "You didn't ask." Silence stretched. Vanessa swallowed. "Richard Hale," she said cautiously, recognition clear now. "I didn't know you knew my sister." Richard raised an eyebrow. "That's interesting," he said. "Because I can't imagine not knowing Evelyn Carter if you share blood." Vanessa flushed. "We're just surprised." Evelyn stood then, placing a bill on the counter. "I was just leaving," she said to Richard. "No," he replied calmly, "you're not." The word landed heavier than a shout. "Sit," he added gently. "Please," Evelyn did. Richard turned to Vanessa, and their mother fully now. "Your daughter," he said to their mother, "just saved my firm from a decision that could have cost thousands of people their jobs." Their mother's breath caught. "Evelyn?" "She does that," Richard continued, quietly, without applause, "which is why people underestimate her." Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. Richard stood. "I believe we should talk somewhere more appropriate," he said to Evelyn, "and I believe," he added, glancing at the two women, "that some people are only just realizing who they've been sitting across from all these years." He offered Evelyn his arm. She took it. As they walked toward the door, Evelyn didn't look back. She didn't need to see their faces to know what was written on them: shock, regret, fear. Outside, the city lights reflected in the restaurant's glass, blurring the celebration inside into something distant and small. In the SUV, Richard spoke quietly. "You know this changes things." Evelyn looked out the window, watching the pub fade behind them. "Things changed a long time ago," she said. "People are just catching up." And somewhere behind them, at a table still decorated with pastel ribbons and untouched cake, a family celebration unraveled. Not because a baby was coming into the world, but because they had finally realized who they had pushed out of it. The SUV moved through Manhattan traffic like it owned the road, gliding past red lights and stalled taxis with quiet authority. Evelyn sat back against the leather seat, hands folded neatly in her lap, her reflection faint in the darkened window. She should have felt shaken by the confrontation, by Vanessa's face when reality cracked, by her mother's silence, but instead she felt calm. Not triumphant, not angry, just calm. The kind that comes when something long overdue finally arrives. Richard didn't speak for several minutes. He respected silence, which was one of the reasons Evelyn had trusted him years ago when others tried to fill every pause with noise. "I've already postponed the signing," he said eventually, cited unforeseen discrepancies. "Good," Evelyn replied. "They'll panic. Sloppy people always do." A corner of his mouth lifted. "You sound like you've been dealing with him your whole life." She didn't answer that. The city lights slid past, reflecting off glass towers and wet asphalt. Finally, Richard glanced at her. "You know I'm going to ask." "I know," she said. "Why haven't you taken the role I offered you last year?" Evelyn exhaled slowly. "Because I didn't want visibility." "That was then," he said. "This is now." She turned to face him. "Visibility changes how people treat you, how they approach you, how they try to use you." "And yet," Richard replied, "they already do." The difference is what you control it. Evelyn considered that as the car slowed near her apartment. Let me think, she said. Richard nodded. I'll give you 24 hours. When she stepped out onto the sidewalk, the cold night air bit gently at her skin. The building above the old tailor shop looked the same as always, unremarkable, forgettable. She liked it. As she climbed the stairs, her phone vibrated for the first time that evening. Vanessa. She ignored it. Inside her apartment, Evelyn kicked off her shoes and poured herself a glass of water. The quiet wrapped around her like a blanket. Her phone buzzed again. Then again. Her mother this time. She let it ring. On the fourth call, she finally picked up. Not because she felt obligated, but because she was curious. Evelyn, her mother said, breathless. Where did you go? I went home. You embarrassed us, Vanessa's voice snapped in the background. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. No, she said calmly. I removed myself. There was a pause. You didn't have to make a scene, her mother said. Evelyn almost laughed. I didn't. You did. Vanessa took the phone. Do you have any idea how that looked? That man Richard Hale, do you know who he is? Yes, Evelyn said. I work with him. You work with him? Vanessa echoed, disbelief sharpening her words. Since when? Since before your wedding, Evelyn replied. Since before your promotion. Since before most of the things you thought defined success. Silence crackled through the line. Their mother spoke softly now. Why didn't you ever tell us? Evelyn leaned against the counter. Because every time I tried to speak, no one listened. That's not fair, Vanessa said quickly. We've always needed me to stay small, Evelyn finished. And I did. For a long time. The call ended shortly after. No apologies, no resolution, just the first fragile awareness that things were no longer where they used to be. The next morning, Evelyn arrived at work as usual. Same understated outfit. Same quiet efficiency. But the building felt different. Eyes lingered. Whispers followed her down the corridor. By noon, an internal memo circulated announcing a strategic leadership update. Her phone buzzed. Richard, come upstairs, he said. It's time. The boardroom was full when she entered. Executives who had barely nodded at her before now straightened in their seats. Richard stood at the head of the table. As of today, he announced, Evelyn Carter will assume the role of Chief Risk and Compliance Officer. A murmur rippled through the room. Evelyn didn't smile. She didn't need to. She met each gaze calmly, daring anyone to question the decision. After the meeting, her assistant knew, nervous hovered nearby. Your sister called, she said hesitantly. Several times. Evelyn nodded. Schedule her for next week. That evening, Vanessa arrived at the office lobby in heels too high for the marble floor, confidence forced back into place like armor. Evelyn met her there, composed, unreadable. I didn't know, Vanessa said finally, about any of it. I know, Evelyn replied. You could have told me. You could have asked. Evelyn said gently. Vanessa's eyes flickered. I'm pregnant. Things are complicated. They always are, Evelyn said. That doesn't excuse cruelty, Vanessa swallowed. I'm sorry, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud, but it was real. And for the first time, Evelyn believed it. Their mother called later that night. Her voice was softer than Evelyn had ever heard it. I failed you, she said simply. Evelyn let the words sit. Then she said, I don't need you to punish yourself. I need you to see me. I do, her mother whispered. When the call ended, Evelyn stood by her window, looking out at the city she had quietly helped shape from behind the scenes. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't invisible either. And across town, in a luxury restaurant that had already forgotten her name, waiters cleared away pastel decorations, unaware that the woman they once dismissed was now making decisions that would ripple far beyond their walls. Evelyn turned off the light. Ready for what came next, recognition didn't arrive all at once. It never did for people like Evelyn. It came in fragments, an article buried on page 6 of a financial journal, mention in an earnings call, a pause in conversation when she entered a room, the kind of recognition that rewires behavior before it rewrites reputation. Within a week, her calendar filled with meetings she hadn't requested. Executives who once forwarded her emails without reading them now asked for her opinion, before making even minor decisions. She listened more than she spoke, as always. But when she did speak, rooms leaned toward her instead of away. The acquisition Richard had nearly signed collapsed quietly after Evelyn's findings triggered a deeper audit. 3 days later, another firm announced a similar deal with the same company, and their stock plummeted by noon. No one said Evelyn's name publicly, but everyone who mattered knew. Power, she had learned, didn't need applause. It only needed acknowledgement. Vanessa felt the shift before she fully understood it. Invitations stopped coming with automatic warmth. People who once smiled easily now studied her, recalculating. At a prenatal appointment, a woman she barely knew asked casually, "Isn't your sister the one at Hale and Whitmore?" Vanessa nodded, startled by the question. The woman smiled differently after that. Vanessa went home unsettled, realizing for the first time that the family hierarchy she had taken for granted was being rewritten without her consent. Their mother tried harder than she ever had before. She called Evelyn just to talk. Asked questions she should have asked years ago. Sometimes she said the wrong thing. Sometimes she cried. Evelyn didn't rush her forgiveness, but she didn't shut the door either. Healing, she knew, wasn't about erasing the past. It was about refusing to live inside it. One evening, Richard invited Evelyn to a private dinner, not celebratory, just intentional. "You don't need this," he said over dessert, "but you deserve to hear it. You've changed how this firm thinks." Evelyn tilted her head. "That sounds expensive." He smiled. "It is. And profitable." On her way home, she passed the Black Alder. The neon sign still flickered. Without thinking, she went in. The bartender recognized her instantly. "Usual?" She nodded, smiling softly. Sitting there, she thought about the girl she used to be, the one who learned to disappear to survive. She hadn't disappeared anymore. She had simply stepped into her own weight. The next family gathering happened months later, smaller, quieter, deliberate. Vanessa approached her first this time, cautious but sincere. "I'm glad you came," she said. "So am I," Evelyn replied, and meant it. No one made jokes at her expense. No one suggested she sit elsewhere. They listened when she spoke. And when she left early, they noticed. That night, alone in her apartment, Evelyn opened her laptop and reviewed a proposal Richard had sent. A new division. Her vision, her rules. She signed her name at the bottom without hesitation. Somewhere in the city, deals would be delayed, risks avoided, futures protected, all because of a woman who had once been told to go sit somewhere else. Evelyn closed the laptop and smiled. Not because she had proven anything to anyone, but because she no longer needed to. Time had a strange way of settling things once the noise faded. Months passed, and Evelyn Carter's name no longer caused surprise, it caused expectation. When she entered rooms, conversations adjusted around her instead of swallowing her presence. She didn't change her clothes, her voice, or her pace. What changed was the way the world responded. Decisions paused for her approval. Risks were measured by her standards, and slowly, quietly, she became someone people waited for, instead of walked past. The moment that sealed everything didn't happen in a boardroom or a press conference. It happened on an ordinary afternoon when Evelyn received a handwritten invitation, cream paper, familiar gold lettering. Vanessa's handwriting this time, a small family dinner. No restaurant name printed, just an address. Home. Evelyn stared at it for a long moment before deciding to go. Not out of obligation but choice. The house felt different when she arrived. Softer. Quieter. Vanessa opened the door herself, visibly nervous. "Thank you for coming," she said. Evelyn nodded. "Thank you for inviting me." Inside, their mother stood near the table, hands folded, eyes uncertain but hopeful. There were no guests, no audience, just truth waiting to be spoken. Dinner passed, slowly, carefully, like everyone was learning a new language. Then, finally, Vanessa broke. "I was cruel," she said, voice shaking, "not because you deserved it, but because I thought being above you made me safe." Evelyn listened. She didn't interrupt. When Vanessa finished, Evelyn spoke quietly. "You didn't break me," she said. "You just showed me who I needed to stop being for you." Tears slid down their mother's face. "I should have protected you," she whispered. Evelyn reached for her glass, steady. "I protected myself," she said, "and that's enough." There was no dramatic forgiveness, no emotional explosion, just understanding settling into place, heavy but honest. That night, Evelyn left early, not because she wasn't welcome, but because she didn't need to stay to prove it. Weeks later, Evelyn stood at the window of her apartment, city lights reflecting in her eyes. Richard's offer had expanded into something permanent now. Influence, authority, legacy. She accepted it without ceremony. The girl who once left a luxury restaurant with no seat now shaped tables others waited to sit at. Sometimes she still passed the Black Alder. Sometimes she went in. Power hadn't erased her humility. It had refined it. And somewhere in the city, Vanessa told her child stories not about status or luxury, but about a woman who walked out quietly when disrespected and changed everything by refusing to beg for a place. Evelyn Carter never demanded an apology from the world. She simply became undeniable. This story doesn't end with revenge. It ends with dignity, with silence that carries weight, with a woman who learned that walking away is sometimes the strongest step forward. And if you've ever been told to sit somewhere else, remember this: the table doesn't decide your worth. You do.